Overcoming social phobia isn't easy. The fear of being judged or not fitting in can be so strong that it makes you avoid social situations, affecting your work life, personal relationships, and even how you feel about yourself. But the good news is that there are ways to manage this anxiety and gradually build a more confident life, less dominated by fear. This content was created to support you on this journey, offering practical and easy-to-understand steps. We'll start by understanding how negative thoughts arise and how you can challenge them. Next, we'll discuss how you can gradually expose yourself to anxiety-inducing situations in a safe and controlled way. We'll also explore ways to improve your social skills and reduce the behaviors you use to protect yourself, but that actually feed your anxiety. Additionally, we'll talk about the importance of being kind to yourself. Self-compassion and self-acceptance are crucial on this journey because when you start treating yourself with more understanding, the anxiety loses some of its power. Instead of pressuring yourself to be perfect, you learn to appreciate yourself, imperfections and all. Each part of this content is designed to be useful and practical, helping you better understand yourself and find ways to live more fully. It's not an easy journey, but with patience and practice, you can begin to face social situations with more confidence and less fear. We're here to support you every step of the way. 1. Understanding social phobia. Have you ever walked into a room full of people and felt that pit in your stomach, a tightness in your chest, as if everyone was watching and judging your every move? If so, you're not alone. This feeling can be paralyzing, to the point where you just want to get out of there as fast as possible. What you're feeling may be more than just simple shyness, it could be something called social phobia. Social phobia is like living with a constant fear of being judged or criticized in any social situation. It's as if every conversation, every interaction, has the potential to expose you to ridicule. And that hurts. It's not just a passing discomfort, it's a weight you carry all the time, preventing you from doing simple things like talking to a colleague at work or even asking for directions on the street. It can be hard to even answer the phone, because deep down, there's a fear that you might say something wrong, be misunderstood, or simply sound ridiculous. And I know it's not easy. This fear, this anxiety, may have started a long time ago, perhaps in childhood or adolescence. You may have grown up hearing constant criticism, or maybe you went through an experience that left a deep mark on you, something that made you believe you would always be judged negatively. Maybe it was a moment when you said something at school and were laughed at, or perhaps a situation where you felt exposed in a way that made you vulnerable. These memories might seem small to others, but for you, they were significant, and over time, they built this fear. Or it could be something in your genes, a trait you inherited without asking for it, that makes you feel things more intensely. Whatever the origin, what matters is that you're feeling this now, and it's affecting your life. I know it can be hard to leave the house, to face situations that seem simple to others. You might avoid social gatherings, skip parties, or even stop talking to friends because the fear of being criticized or making a mistake holds you back. And this goes beyond mere discomfort, it's a fear that isolates you, that makes you feel alone even when you're surrounded by people. You might have stayed home on a Saturday night while your friends went out to have fun, simply because the idea of facing that social environment seemed unbearable. And the worst part is that this isolation can feed the anxiety even more, creating a cycle that seems impossible to break. This disorder, though often invisible to others, can have a huge impact on various areas of your life. At work, for example, social phobia might stop you from speaking up in meetings, sharing your ideas, or seeking growth opportunities because all of these involve exposing yourself in some way. You might know that you have a lot to contribute, but the fear of judgment is so strong that you end up staying silent, letting others take the lead. In your personal relationships, this fear can create barriers, making it difficult for you to open up to friends or family, even when you need support. And all of this directly affects your well-being, making anxiety a constant companion, undermining your confidence and joy of living. And you know that feeling of just being shy? It's different. Shyness is something we all feel at some point, but it doesn't stop you from living your life. Social phobia, on the other hand, is a fear that dominates, that controls your actions and decisions. While shyness might fade after you get used to a situation, social phobia stays with you, suffocating you, even after the moment has passed. You might try to mentally prepare, rehearsing what to say or how to act, but when the time comes, anxiety takes over, and you feel frozen, unable to respond the way you'd like. But I want to tell you something, there is a way out of this cycle. There's an approach called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, that has helped many people overcome social phobia. CBT works like a guide, helping you understand and change the thoughts that fuel your anxiety. It's like learning to see situations from a new perspective, one that isn't so filled with fear and negativity. CBT teaches you to identify those automatic thoughts that run through your mind in social situations, like "they're judging me" or "I'm going to mess up," and replace them with more realistic, less threatening thoughts. And of course, it's not an easy process. You might need to face your fears, one step at a time, but it is possible. CBT gives you the tools to do that, to rebuild your confidence and gradually start participating in life more fully. It might start with something small, like ordering coffee at a shop you've never been to or talking to someone new at work. Over time, these small victories add up, and you start to realize that you can handle these situations. I know it might seem scary to think about facing these fears, but I want you to know that you don't have to do it alone. There's help available, and you deserve to live a life that isn't controlled by fear. It might be difficult at first, but every small step you take is a victory. Remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about being human and learning to deal with difficulties at your own pace. You're not alone in this. There are others going through the same thing as you, and there are many people ready to help you find a path to a less anxious and more free life. I believe you can do it, one day at a time. 2. Identifying negative automatic thoughts. Let's talk about the thoughts that pop into your mind almost without you noticing, especially when you're in social situations. These thoughts, known as negative automatic thoughts, are those ideas and assumptions that appear quickly and often influence how you feel and act. They can be so fast and so habitual that you don't even realize they're there, but the impact they have on your life can be huge. These negative automatic thoughts are like little whispers in your mind, saying things like "they'll think I'm stupid" or "I'll mess up, and everyone will laugh at me." As real as these thoughts might seem in the moment, it's important to understand that they are just interpretations, often distorted, of reality. For example, you might walk into a room and automatically think that everyone is judging you, even though, in reality, people are just busy with their own lives and concerns. Recognizing these patterns of thought is the first step toward changing how you feel in social situations. One useful technique for identifying these thoughts is to pay attention to your emotional response in moments of stress or anxiety. If you notice that as you prepare for a meeting or encounter a group of people, your heart starts racing and your mind fills with worries, it's likely that these negative automatic thoughts are behind it. Ask yourself, what exactly am I thinking right now, or what am I assuming about this situation? This can help bring these thoughts to the surface, where you can begin to deal with them. Another powerful tool in identifying these thoughts is thought recording. It might seem simple, but writing down what you're thinking in moments of anxiety can make a big difference. A thought journal can serve as a map that helps you see patterns and better understand how your mind works in different situations. When you write down your thoughts, it's easier to notice how repetitive and often irrational they are. For example, you might start to notice that every time you're in a situation where you have to speak in public, you think, "I'm going to fail" or "they'll think I'm incompetent." Recording these thoughts gives you the opportunity to analyze them more calmly and clearly, away from the heat of the moment. But it's not enough to just identify these thoughts, you also need to understand what triggers them. Triggers are specific situations that activate these automatic thoughts. It might be that public speaking, participating in a meeting, or even starting a conversation with someone new triggers a flood of negative thoughts. Identifying these triggers is crucial because once you know what activates them, you can start to better prepare for facing these situations. For example, if you know that every time you have a presentation at work, you start thinking you're going to fail, you can start working on these thoughts before you even step into the meeting room. After identifying the thoughts and triggers, one of the most challenging but also most liberating parts comes: questioning the truth of these thoughts. It's easy to believe what our minds tell us, especially when we're used to hearing the same things over and over again. But just because a thought pops into your head doesn't mean it's true. One technique for analyzing the validity of your thoughts is to ask yourself, what evidence do I have that this thought is true, and is there any evidence that contradicts it? For example, if you think, "I'm going to fail at this presentation," ask yourself, how many times have I actually failed before, or do people really think I'm incompetent, or is that just my fear talking? By doing this, you can start to see that many of your automatic thoughts are based on fears and assumptions, not facts. And that's an important step in starting to change the way you relate to your own emotions. Another effective method is to imagine what you would say to a friend going through the same situation. Often, we're much kinder and more rational with others than we are with ourselves. If a friend told you they were afraid of being ridiculed during a presentation, you'd probably remind them of all their qualities, of all the times they were successful, and that mistakes are normal and part of the learning process. So why not do the same for yourself? Dealing with negative automatic thoughts isn't an instant process, but the more you practice identifying, recording, analyzing triggers, and questioning the validity of these thoughts, the easier it becomes to manage them. Remember, your mind is powerful, but you have the power to choose how to respond to the thoughts it creates. With patience and practice, it's possible to weaken the impact of these negative thoughts and live more lightly and confidently, even in social situations that once seemed impossible to face. 3. Cognitive restructuring. There's something that can make a big difference in how you deal with negative thoughts and the anxiety they bring: cognitive restructuring. You may have heard this term before, but it might not be clear what it really means and how it can help you. Cognitive restructuring is like reshaping your thoughts, especially those that are distorted and that end up bringing you down. You know, when you enter a social situation, and your mind starts bombarding you with thoughts like "I'm going to fail, everyone's going to judge me," or "I'm terrible at this." These are distorted thoughts because they don't reflect reality accurately. They're exaggerated, negative, and often based on old fears or past experiences that no longer apply to your current life. The process of cognitive restructuring starts with identifying these thoughts. You've already practiced identifying your automatic thoughts, so this is a natural continuation. Once you identify a negative thought, the next step is to challenge it. Ask yourself, is this thought really true? What's more likely to happen? How do others handle similar situations? This challenge is crucial because it opens up space for you to see the situation more balanced. Instead of letting panic or negativity take over, you start to realize that there are other ways to interpret the situation. Now, let's talk about how you can replace these negative thoughts with more realistic and balanced alternatives. The idea isn't just to force a positive thought in place of a negative one, but to create a thought that's closer to reality. For example, if you think, "I'm going to fail at this presentation," try reframing it to something like, "I prepared well for this presentation, and even if it's not perfect, I'm going to do my best." Notice how this new thought is more balanced. It acknowledges that perfection isn't necessary and that what matters is the effort and preparation. This thought replacement is an exercise that, over time, becomes more natural. At first, it might seem a bit artificial or difficult, but it's like strengthening a muscle. The more you practice, the easier it gets. And as you get used to replacing distorted thoughts with more realistic ones, you start to notice that the anxiety decreases and you feel more confident in social situations. Another technique that can be very helpful in this process is practicing positive affirmations. Affirmations are phrases you repeat to yourself with the goal of reinforcing a more positive and empowering mindset. They work because, over time, they start to shape how you see yourself and the situations around you. For example, you might create an affirmation like, "I'm capable of handling social challenges," or "I deserve to be heard and respected." Repeating these affirmations daily, especially before facing anxiety-provoking situations, can help build a foundation of confidence and resilience. In addition, positive visualization exercises are a powerful tool to prepare your mind for facing situations that would normally cause you anxiety. Visualization works like this: instead of imagining the worst-case scenario, as your mind usually does, you start visualizing a social situation positively. For example, if you're worried about a work meeting, spend a few minutes imagining yourself entering the room confidently, speaking clearly, and receiving positive responses from your colleagues. By repeatedly visualizing these positive scenarios, you train your mind to expect the best, not the worst. These visualization exercises, combined with cognitive restructuring, create a more favorable mental environment for you. Over time, you start to notice that those negative automatic thoughts that once seemed so powerful begin to lose strength. You feel more in control, more capable of facing social situations with calm and confidence. The process of cognitive restructuring, along with practicing affirmations and positive visualizations, isn't a magic solution that fixes everything overnight. It's an ongoing practice, something you build little by little, day by day. But every step you take in this direction makes a real difference. It's like paving a new path in your mind, one that leads to less anxiety and more peace, less fear and more self-confidence. And remember, you're in control of this process. Cognitive restructuring is about taking power over your thoughts instead of letting them control you. And this is something you can do, one thought at a time. If you're enjoying this content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Your subscription helps us keep creating content with love and dedication. 4. Managing the fear of negative evaluation. You know what's at the heart of many of your social anxieties? The fear of being negatively evaluated. This fear can be one of the most powerful forces behind social phobia, and understanding how it works is the first step in beginning to face it. The fear of negative evaluation is that constant feeling that you're being watched, judged, and that any small mistake could result in criticism or rejection. It's like being under a spotlight, where every movement, every word, is being minutely analyzed by others. This can make you feel extremely vulnerable, and it's natural for anxiety to show up in response. This fear is central to social phobia because often what's at stake isn't just a critique or comment, but the idea that any negative evaluation confirms the insecurities you already have about yourself. Understanding why this fear is so strong can help in dealing with it. Often, it's rooted in past experiences, where you might have been criticized or ridiculed at a time when you felt particularly vulnerable. These experiences leave deep marks, and your brain learns to associate social situations with the possibility of new criticisms. From there, any situation involving others' opinions can become a source of stress. But how can we start to manage this fear? A useful technique is evidence analysis. This basically means investigating whether your fears of negative evaluation are really based on facts or are just assumptions. Imagine you have an important presentation at work and think, everyone's going to notice that I'm nervous and think I'm incompetent. By analyzing this idea, you can ask yourself, what evidence do I have that this will happen? Has it happened before? Do people really react that way when someone's nervous? Often, by asking these questions, you'll realize that these thoughts are more a product of your fear than reality. Another effective approach is desensitization, which involves gradual and controlled exposure to the situations you fear. For example, if you're afraid of public speaking, you can start by practicing in front of a mirror, then with friends or family, until gradually you feel more comfortable in more challenging situations. This gradual exposure helps your brain learn that these situations aren't as threatening as they seem. It's like training for a sport, the more you practice, the less intimidating it becomes. Developing an alternative perspective can also be very helpful. Often, the fear of negative evaluation is amplified by a distorted view of how others really think and feel. You might think that people are constantly judging you critically, but the truth is that most people are much more focused on their own lives and concerns than on analyzing every detail of what you do. Try adopting a more balanced view. People might notice that I'm nervous, but that doesn't mean they'll judge me negatively. We all feel anxious at some point, and that's normal. Over time, by reinforcing this perspective, you can start to feel less fearful of others' judgments. A practical and effective tool for facing this fear is role-playing or practicing social situations. This involves simulating social interactions with someone you trust, like a friend or therapist. During these role plays, you can practice what you would say or do in a situation that normally causes anxiety, like a work meeting or a party. This practice helps you prepare mentally and emotionally for these situations, reducing the fear that something will go wrong. Plus, it allows you to try out different responses and see how they feel, all in a safe and judgment-free environment. As you practice these techniques, you'll start to notice that the fear of negative evaluation can be managed. It may not disappear completely, but it can be reduced to a level that doesn't interfere so much in your life. Remember, it's normal to worry about what others think to some extent, but when it starts to stop you from living fully, it's important to take steps to change that dynamic. Managing the fear of negative evaluation is a process that requires patience and practice. You're working to change a way of thinking that may have taken hold over many years, so it's natural that it will take some time. But each step you take toward facing this fear is a step toward a freer life, where you can participate in social situations without feeling like you're always under judgment. These techniques may be challenging, but the reward is greater self-confidence and a renewed ability to engage with others authentically. You deserve to live a life where the fear of being evaluated doesn't dictate your actions. With practice and perseverance, it's possible to create that reality for yourself. 5. Relaxation and mindfulness techniques. Mindfulness is a practice that has been gaining more and more attention for its ability to help manage anxiety and develop a more conscious presence in daily life. By practicing mindfulness, you learn to focus on the present moment without judgment, which can be especially helpful when anxiety starts to take over. The central idea is simple: instead of getting carried away by anxious thoughts about the future or ruminations about the past, you focus on the now, noticing what is happening with you and around you. A good starting point is to learn how to breathe more mindfully. You know that moment when anxiety starts to kick in, and your breathing gets fast and shallow? That only puts your body into even more of an alert mode. Instead, try to pause for a moment and take a real deep breath. Inhale through your nose, let the air fill your lungs and belly, and then slowly exhale through your mouth. It might seem simple, but this change in breathing sends a signal to your body that everything is okay, that it can relax. Another way to help your body relax is with progressive muscle relaxation. Often, we don't even realize how much tension our body holds, especially in moments of anxiety. This technique is almost like a body scan, where you tense and relax muscle groups, starting from your feet and moving up to your head. For example, you tighten the muscles in your feet, hold for a few seconds, and then release, letting them completely relax. It's amazing how this helps relieve accumulated stress and makes you feel more connected to your body. Guided meditation is another practice that can work wonders, especially if you find it difficult to meditate on your own. In a guided meditation, you follow the voice of someone who leads you through a process of relaxation and focus. It's a great way to calm down, especially before facing a situation that makes you nervous, like a meeting or social event. Listening to a calm and reassuring voice can help you set aside worries and enter a state of tranquility. But mindfulness doesn't have to be something you only do in specific moments, like during meditation. It can be incorporated into your daily life in small ways. For example, while you're walking, instead of letting your mind wander, you can pay attention to your steps, the sound of your feet on the ground, the wind on your face. Or during a conversation, you can really focus on what the other person is saying, without thinking about how you'll respond or other worries. These small mindfulness practices help create a calmer mental space, where anxiety has less room to grow. The idea is that, over time, these practices become part of your routine in such a way that you don't even have to think much about them. Breathing deeply, relaxing your muscles, being present in the moment, all of this will become natural, something you do automatically when you feel anxiety creeping in. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes to face social situations with a sense of calm and control. These mindfulness and relaxation techniques can really transform the way you face daily life. Instead of constantly feeling on edge, you start to find moments of peace and feel that you're in control, not the anxiety. It's a process, it takes time, but little by little you start to notice the changes: more tranquility, more presence, less anxiety taking over. And that, in the end, makes a huge difference in your life. 6. Gradual exposure to social situations. Facing social anxiety can seem like a gigantic task, but the idea of gradual exposure to social situations is a very effective way of dealing with it. Instead of trying to face all your fears at once, you start slowly, choosing situations that are easier to handle, and over time, you increase the difficulty. This helps reduce anxiety, allowing you to feel more comfortable and confident in situations that used to be scary. A good start is to create a hierarchy of fears. This means listing the social situations that make you anxious, from the mildest to the most intense. Think of things you usually avoid or that make you uncomfortable. It could be something simple like asking a stranger for directions to something that seems really difficult, like giving a speech or attending a party full of strangers. Organizing these situations into a list, from the easiest to the hardest, gives you a clear view of what needs to be done. This list is like a roadmap for the journey you're going to take, and seeing it structured like this can give you a sense of control over the process. Once you have your hierarchy, the next step is to choose a situation from the beginning of the list and prepare to face it. There's no need to rush things, go at your own pace. If greeting a colleague at work is something that makes you anxious, start there. It might seem like a small step, but that's exactly what will help you build the confidence needed to face bigger challenges. Before exposing yourself to the situation, you can prepare mentally, thinking about how you want to act, maybe even rehearsing what you're going to say. Techniques like deep breathing can also help calm your nerves before acting. This preparation can make a big difference when it comes to facing the situation. After you've gone through one of these situations, it's important to take some time to reflect on what happened. How did you feel? What went well? What could be better? Writing down your impressions in a journal can be a good way to do this. Writing helps organize thoughts and better understand your emotions. Plus, having a record of these experiences allows you to track your progress over time. It can be interesting to notice that looking back, situations that once made you very anxious now seem less challenging. As you start feeling more confident in the easier situations, it's time to increase the difficulty, moving on to the next ones on the list. If greeting a colleague is no longer a problem, maybe it's time to try starting a short conversation. Then, who knows, participate in a meeting where you need to share your ideas. The important thing is to gradually increase the difficulty without pressuring yourself too much. Respect your time and your limitations. It's normal for some challenges to be harder than others, and if necessary, you can step back a bit to gain more confidence before moving forward. Gradual exposure is a journey that requires patience and consistency. Everyone has their own pace, and there's no set time to complete this journey. What matters is that you're making progress, one step at a time, facing anxiety and gaining more freedom in your social life. When you look back and see how far you've come, even if it was little by little, you'll see that things that once seemed impossible are now easier to face. This process is about building confidence and proving to yourself that you can handle your fears. In the beginning, situations might seem scary, but as you keep practicing, you'll realize that you can face them more calmly. Every small victory, every situation overcome, strengthens your confidence and prepares you for bigger challenges. And the best part is that over time, you start living with less fear and more freedom to be yourself in any situation. Gradual exposure won't completely eliminate anxiety, but it will greatly reduce the impact it has on your life. Over time, you'll notice that you can enter situations you used to avoid, feeling more in control and less at the mercy of anxiety. That alone is a big victory. 7. Social skills training. Improving your social skills can really make a big difference in how you feel in social situations. For many people, social anxiety isn't just about the fear of being judged, but also about doubts about how to communicate clearly and comfortably. The good news is that these skills can be learned and improved, like any other skill, and this can help a lot in reducing anxiety. The first step is to take an honest look at your current social skills. Try to think about how you feel when talking to others. Do you feel comfortable starting a conversation, or do you usually avoid that kind of situation? Can you express your feelings and opinions clearly, or do you often stay quiet or avoid saying what you really think? Identifying these areas is important because it helps you know where to focus your attention. You might notice that you have difficulty asserting yourself or that you don't feel comfortable in situations where you need to give your opinion. These are the areas where you can start working. One of the key points to improving your social interactions is developing assertive communication. Being assertive means being able to express what you think and feel clearly and directly, but always with respect for others. This is not the same as being aggressive or passive. For example, if someone constantly interrupts you, instead of staying quiet and feeling bad, you might say something like, "I'd like to finish my thought before you speak." This shows that you value your own voice without disrespecting the other person. Practicing assertive communication can really change how you feel in social interactions because it allows you to express yourself more genuinely and confidently. Another important social skill is active listening. Often, during a conversation, we're so focused on what we're going to say next that we don't really pay attention to what the other person is saying. Active listening is about being present in the conversation, showing genuine interest in what the other person is talking about. This not only improves the quality of your interactions but also makes the other person feel heard and respected. To practice active listening, try asking questions to clarify what the person said and avoid interrupting. Small gestures like nodding or giving short responses like "I understand" or "that makes sense" can also show that you're really paying attention. In addition, learning to give and receive constructive feedback is another important part of social skills. Giving feedback can be tricky because you want to be honest without hurting the other person. The key here is to focus on behavior, not the person. Instead of saying, "You're disorganized," you might say, "I noticed that some deadlines weren't met, which impacted the project's progress." Similarly, when receiving feedback, it's important to try to listen without immediately becoming defensive. Think about what was said and use it as an opportunity to grow and improve. Receiving feedback openly might not be easy, but it's essential for personal and social development. Practice is key when it comes to social skills. And that doesn't just mean waiting for opportunities to practice, but also creating situations where you can train these skills in a safe and pressure-free way. A good way to do this is through role-playing exercises, where you can simulate social interactions with a friend or therapist. For example, if you have trouble starting conversations, you can practice how you would start a conversation in different scenarios. This practice allows you to try different approaches and see what works best without the pressure of being in a real situation. As you practice, you'll notice that your social skills begin to improve. Situations that used to be uncomfortable or scary start to feel more natural and manageable. And remember, no one is born knowing exactly how to interact in all social situations. These are skills that we all develop over time, with practice and experience. Over time, you'll notice a significant difference in your confidence in social situations. The anxiety that used to stop you from expressing yourself or engaging with others will start to diminish, and you'll feel more in control of your interactions. Improving your social skills isn't just about feeling less anxious, it's also about connecting better with others and building more meaningful relationships. Training your social skills is a continuous journey of learning and growth. It's not about being perfect, but about being more authentic and confident in your daily interactions. Every small progress you make contributes to a more secure and comfortable version of yourself in any social situation. And that's something that's well worth it. 8. Facing avoidance and safety behaviors. Facing social anxiety can be a huge challenge, especially when you find yourself avoiding situations that make you uncomfortable or adopting behaviors that seem to help but actually increase anxiety in the long run. These avoidance and safety behaviors are common in people with social anxiety, and recognizing them is the first step to overcoming them. Often, we don't even realize how much we're avoiding social situations. Maybe you've noticed that you always find an excuse not to go to a party or meeting, or that you prefer to stay home instead of going out with friends. These are clear examples of avoidance behaviors. They might seem harmless at the moment, but in the long run, they only make the anxiety worse because you never get the chance to prove to yourself that you can handle these situations. Recognizing these behaviors is crucial. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding? Why? Often, what's behind this is the fear of being judged, making a mistake, or not knowing what to say. Identifying these avoidance patterns is the first step towards starting to face them. In addition to avoidance behaviors, there are safety behaviors, which are those things you do to feel more secure in social situations but that actually perpetuate the anxiety. For example, you might always take your phone to a party and keep looking at it as a way to avoid interacting with others. Or maybe you avoid making eye contact during a conversation because it makes you uncomfortable. These behaviors might seem helpful, but in reality, they stop you from facing your fears directly and truthfully. Understanding that these safety behaviors, although they seem protective, are actually reinforcing the anxiety is an important step in starting to change. To reduce avoidance, it's helpful to develop strategies that help you gradually face the situations you usually avoid. This can start with small steps. If you always avoid public speaking, for example, you can start by speaking in smaller groups or in situations that seem less intimidating. It's important to create a plan that respects your pace but also challenges you to step out of your comfort zone. For example, if you avoid social gatherings, you can start by accepting an invitation to a small gathering or coffee with close friends, where the pressure is lower. Each small victory you achieve, no matter how small it seems, helps build the confidence needed to face more challenging situations. Letting go of safety behaviors is another essential step. It can be scary, but it's important to start facing situations without these supports that, deep down, only reinforce your dependence on them. For example, if you usually avoid making eye contact, start practicing it consciously, first with people you trust and feel comfortable with. If you use your phone as a crutch in social events, try putting it away and focus on being present at the moment. These steps might seem small, but over time, they help reduce the anxiety associated with these situations and allow you to interact more authentically. Monitoring your progress is key to seeing how much you're advancing. Keeping a record of the situations you face and the safety behaviors you abandon can be extremely motivating. Writing down your experiences, how you felt before, during, and after each situation, helps create a clear perspective on your development. You might notice that something that once seemed impossible, like talking to a stranger, is now not so scary. This kind of continuous reflection also helps you adjust your strategies, identifying what works best for you. Another important strategy is to reward yourself for facing your fears and reducing safety behaviors. It doesn't have to be anything grand, but recognizing your achievements, even the small ones, can help maintain motivation. Perhaps you can reward yourself with something simple, like an activity you enjoy, after having faced a challenging situation. Rewards act as positive reinforcement, helping to associate overcoming fears with feelings of satisfaction and achievement. It's also helpful to remember that this process doesn't have to be solitary. Seeking support from friends, family, or even a therapist can make a big difference. Sometimes, having someone to share your achievements and challenges with can ease the pressure and provide a new perspective on your progress. A therapist, in particular, can help guide the process in a structured way, offering specific techniques and strategies for dealing with anxiety and avoidance. The process of facing avoidance and safety behaviors isn't easy and can take time, but every step you take is progress toward a life that's freer from anxiety. It's important to be patient with yourself and recognize that progress might be slow, but it's real and significant. Over time, you'll start to notice that you have more control over your anxiety and that you're able to face situations that once seemed insurmountable. This will undoubtedly give you a new confidence to face the world and participate in social experiences in a fuller and more satisfying way. 9. Evidence evaluation and reality testing. Sometimes, when we're in a social situation, our mind starts creating scenarios that seem much worse than they really are. It's like we're already convinced that something is going to go wrong or that people are going to judge us badly. These thoughts can be so automatic that we don't even realize how they're influencing the way we feel and act. But there's a way to deal with this, and it starts with a practice called evidence evaluation and reality testing. First, it's important to stop and ask yourself, what's really happening here? Imagine you're in a meeting and suddenly think, everyone here must think I don't know what I'm doing. Before accepting this thought as truth, it's worth stopping and asking, what makes me believe this? Has someone said something to suggest this? Has anyone made any gestures that really indicate they think this? Often, when we take a closer look, we realize that these thoughts don't have a solid basis. They're more about our insecurities than about what's actually happening. After taking this pause and gathering some evidence, the next step is to test these thoughts. For example, if you have the belief that if you start a conversation with someone, that person will think you're boring, why not test it? It might be uncomfortable at first, but it's the only way to find out what really happens. Start a conversation and see how the person reacts. It might be that the response is much more positive than you imagined. And even if the conversation isn't perfect, that doesn't mean you're boring. It just means that not every interaction is going to be perfect, and that's okay. These small tests are ways to experience reality instead of getting stuck in the assumptions your mind creates. And after you do these experiments, it's important to reflect on what happened. How did you feel? What really happened instead of what you thought was going to happen? By reflecting on this, you begin to realize that many of your fears don't materialize the way you imagined. This helps weaken these automatic thoughts and build more confidence. Over time, this practice of evaluating evidence and testing reality will help you change the way you deal with your negative thoughts. If before you thought everyone was judging you or that you were going to fail in any social situation, little by little you'll realize that these assumptions aren't always true. And that's very liberating. You start to have more control over your thoughts and, consequently, over how you feel and act in social situations. Another important step in this process is behavioral experimentation. This means putting actions into practice that challenge your fears and beliefs. For example, if you believe that no one will like you at a party, go to one and see what happens. Observe how people react to you and how you feel interacting with them. It might be that you discover that things aren't as bad as your mind made them seem. These experiences help break the cycle of negative thoughts, showing that reality can be very different from your worries. After each experiment, it's essential to reflect on the results. What really happened? How does this compare to what you thought was going to happen? This reflection gives you the opportunity to adjust your beliefs, replacing distorted thoughts with a more realistic and balanced view. Little by little, you begin to build a new narrative where anxiety doesn't have as much power over you. Finally, use these insights to review and restructure your beliefs. If before you thought you were incapable of doing well in social situations, these new experiences and reflections help you see that you're more capable than you imagined. Cognitive restructuring is exactly that, using reality, evidence, and experiences to reformulate the way you see yourself and the world around you. The key to all this is practice. The more you challenge your negative thoughts and test reality, the more you realize that you can trust yourself. Over time, those catastrophic scenarios that your anxious mind creates begin to lose their power, and you feel more confident to face social situations with more tranquility. It's not a quick process, but every step in that direction makes a big difference. You begin to realize that, most of the time, reality is much kinder than the thoughts your anxious mind creates. And that's a discovery that can completely transform the way you live your social interactions. 10. Self-compassion and self-acceptance. Dealing with social anxiety can be a challenging journey, and in the midst of this journey, it's easy to be hard on yourself, criticizing yourself for every little mistake or for not being perfect. However, there's an approach that can transform this experience: self-compassion. Instead of criticizing yourself, learning to treat yourself with kindness and understanding can make a big difference in how you handle your challenges. Self-compassion essentially means giving yourself the same care and support that you would give to a dear friend. When you're going through a tough time, instead of scolding yourself, you offer yourself empathy and understanding. It's understanding that everyone, at some point, goes through difficulties and makes mistakes, and that this is part of the human experience. In the context of social phobia, self-compassion is essential because it helps relieve the pressure and anxiety of trying to be perfect all the time. One way to practice self-compassion is to pay attention to how you talk to yourself. Often, our self-criticism is severe and relentless. Try to notice the moments when you catch yourself criticizing yourself and ask, would I say this to a friend going through the same situation? If the answer is no, it's time to reframe that internal dialogue. For example, if you feel bad for getting nervous in a meeting, instead of thinking, I'm a disaster, you can say to yourself, I was nervous, and that's normal. Next time, I'll try to calm down beforehand. This shift in how you treat yourself can make a big difference in your self-esteem and your ability to face social situations. Accepting your imperfections is also a fundamental part of this process. We all have flaws and make mistakes, and that's part of being human. However, we often try to hide or deny our imperfections, which only increases anxiety and stress. Instead, accepting that you don't need to be perfect is liberating. This doesn't mean that you should stop trying to improve, but that you can accept and value yourself even with your flaws. Remember, no one is perfect, and it's okay to be who you are, with all your imperfections. Developing self-acceptance is an ongoing process. A useful strategy is to practice gratitude for yourself. Take a moment every day to acknowledge something good about yourself. It could be something small, like how you handled a difficult situation, or something bigger, like a personality trait you value. These small practices help shift the focus from what you see as flaws to what you do well, creating a more balanced and healthy view of yourself. To maintain self-compassion and self-acceptance in the long term, it's important to integrate these practices into your daily life. This can be done through small rituals, like starting the day with a positive affirmation, or taking a few minutes at the end of the day to reflect on something you did well instead of focusing on what you think you did wrong. Another useful practice is self-compassion meditation, where you take time to connect with your emotions and treat yourself with kindness. This ongoing practice helps sustain the progress you make in overcoming social phobia. When you treat yourself with compassion and acceptance, anxiety loses some of its power. Instead of feeling crushed by the pressure to be perfect, you allow yourself to be human, with all your flaws and qualities. And that, in the end, makes facing social situations less scary and more manageable. At its core, self-compassion and self-acceptance aren't just about feeling good about yourself, they're powerful tools that help build emotional resilience. When you stop punishing yourself for not being perfect and start supporting yourself, even in difficult moments, you become stronger and more capable of facing the challenges that arise. And it's this inner strength, cultivated through compassion, that sustains long-term progress. So, be kind to yourself. Understand that the path to overcoming social phobia isn't linear, and there will be good and bad days. But on each of those days, self-compassion can be your ally, reminding you that you deserve to be treated with the same care and respect that you offer to others. By integrating self-compassion and self-acceptance into your life, you're building a solid foundation for facing challenges with more lightness and confidence. Getting to this point doesn't mean the work is done, but rather that you've taken important steps to better understand and manage social phobia. Throughout this process, you've learned to identify and challenge negative thoughts, gradually expose yourself to situations that once seemed scary, and improve your social skills. More than that, you've started practicing self-compassion and self-acceptance, learning to be kinder to yourself. This journey isn't easy, and it's normal to have ups and downs. But every small step you take, every time you choose to face fear instead of hiding, is a victory. Over time, these moments add up, and you realize that anxiety is starting to lose the control it once had over your life. Remember to keep practicing what you've learned here and to be patient with yourself. The confidence and calm you seek are within reach, one step at a time. You've already shown that you're capable of making progress, and from here, every new situation is an opportunity to live more fully, authentically, and free from anxiety. You're on the right path, and that's something to be proud of. Thank you for sticking with us until the end. Your likes and subscription are very important to us. Help us keep the Books Project alive and continue delivering high-quality content. Wishing you peace, and see you next time.